Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I'm your host Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're coming to you with another Thursday episode sponsored by our awesome sponsors, Gray Fox Games. They are currently running a promotion where if you use the coupon code NOVGAMEGUYS, NOVGAMEGUYS, NOVGAMEGUYS on their website, grayfoxgames.com, to order any non-exclusive products, you, dear listener, get 20% off. So, you know, if you want to save some money on some Gray Fox games, go use that code and get some. So,
Get some!
Fucking get some. Yeah, so board gaming podcast. Let's talk about some board games. So I haven't really played much, which continues like my 6-week-long trend of not really playing much. I did dive back into the Root app a little bit. People have been kind of organizing games fairly regularly on Slack, and I wanted to kind of brush up, and I want to start doing those a little bit more often. So I've been playing it solo a bit. I've been trying to figure out how the fuck to play the Woodland Alliance.
How'd that go?
And not well. I have, in fact, given up. Because I've had games as Woodland Alliance where I've done really good about spreading my sympathy around, but I can't get any forts and I can't get any troops, and I just get raffle stomped that way. The most recent game that I just played earlier this week, I got all 3 of my forts out almost immediately. And I had troops out to defend them, and I was sending them out like 1 or 2 guys to a clearing to guard my sympathy so that I could still have sympathy on the board and trying to spread sympathy. And I still got raffle stomped. And I just do not know how to succeed with them. I think I'm going to have to, if I ever want to have any chance at competing as Woodland Alliance, I'm going to need to look up some information on like tips of how to play them well. Because it, for whatever reason, to me, is not intuitive. You know, like some of them, like I can do Irie. Like I know how to play as Irie. I've won dominantly as Irie. You know, or like the in the expansions, which unfortunately aren't on the app, but in the expansions, like I do really well as the Duchy. You know, and I don't know, maybe I'd be better at Woodland Alliance like in an in-person game, because I feel like the AI is definitely just like, oh, look at this unguarded sympathy here. That's a free point if I just attack it. So of course I'm going to attack it. Whereas I feel like real players get too attached to their cards and don't want to like give you a card for destroying your sympathy sometimes, so they let the Woodland Alliance spread sympathy real big before they start stomping them down, and that's when you get like the runaway Woodland Alliance victories that I've definitely seen other people succeed at. So yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think next I'll probably start trying to, like, now that I've given up on learning Woodland Alliance very well through the app, I have also not ever really played very much Vagabond. So I'm going to start playing Vagabond a little bit to get used to them. And then I've played cats plenty of times. I've played birds plenty of times. And that's all the factions that you can really play as until they add some expansions. So we'll see. And that's basically it. I played some Root app trying to get good at Woodland Alliance and failed at that.
How many? What player count do you usually play at?
I almost always play 4 on the app. I've thought about trying 3, especially because I really fucking hate the Vagabond when I'm trying to be Woodland Alliance, because he always ends up shitting on me. You know, you'd think that Woodland Alliance and Vagabond would be natural allies in a lore type situation, but it does not work out that way.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Has there been any talk of I know they're looking at doing the clockwork races first, right? And then eventually the expansions? Okay.
That is all that I am aware of. They responded to my review, which was like a review of like, hey, yeah, this is like really good app. I just really want expansions. And they replied and were like, yeah, we're working on clockwork. And that was it. So nothing else beyond that.
Gotcha.
That's it for me, though. So, Jeff, if I recall, you didn't actually have any board games either, right?
Correct.
You spent your board gaming all your time yesterday or last week, and you're just recovering now, right?
Correct. Yes, I needed my board game recovery time. There was absolutely nothing else that I would have been possibly doing.
No, there's nothing.
With my
nothing
free
important
time.
happening. Nothing at all. Nothing. I can't think of anything.
No.
No major console releases or anything like that
No,
would
no,
have
no.
affected Jeff's playtime.
No. No one could ever get one of those.
No.
No, they're impossible to find.
Maybe even 2 of them.
Wait, you got 2?
I got an Xbox Series X and a PS5.
Yep.
You motherfucker. Oh, I'm going to hate on you some more in banter. Zach, what have you been playing?
Well, the only board game that I've played this week isn't really even a board game at all, but I went over to a friend's house and we played poker for a night. It was just a $20 buy-in. Just, Texas Hold'em standard sort of stuff. There were 4 of us, and I want to say about 30 minutes in, there was a hand that came out that everybody just sort of, put in the standard ante, and then when it flipped, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I want to say it was like a queen, a 10, and a 9. And I was like, okay, well, I had a queen in my hand, and I was like, I was the first person bidding. I was like, I'm gonna put in 2 and see how everybody reacts. Basically to see if anybody has that straight. And so I put in 2, and then it immediately went 25, 25, and then 50. And so I was just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna take these cards and just fold them away, because obviously this is big leagues, and I'm just someone trying to hit a t-ball at that point. And then it turned out that everybody had the straight, but one person had the king, so they had like the higher straight. And so 2 people got knocked out because like everybody went all in. Everybody else went all in basically. And then so 2 of them rebought in pretty quickly because it was only like 30 minutes in. But then at the end, it started around 7:30. At midnight, I want to say it ended at 12:30, and I was one of the final 2 that were in there. And at like 12:15, it got to the point where our antes were 100, 200 just to get the game fucking going and to make sure that like we weren't going to stay there all night. Yeah. And with your $20, you got like 300 chips. So we were betting like, $6.50, so almost $13, like just to play.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so 2 people bought in. So there was 1,800 chips, 1,800 worth of chips. And because the antes were 1 and 200, like we kept passing back and forth of like who had the most and then who had the least. Just because it was like, well, I have a 10, I think an 8-2 offsuit. I'm going to pass on this, but I lost 100 there. And then after about 10 or 15 minutes of this, like both of us, our stamina was draining pretty quickly. And also there was a good amount of like White Claws and other drinks being drank, I guess. And then also 2 of them were smoking weed, and we were in a confined area, so it started to affect everybody more or less. But at one
everyone's smoking weed.
Yes, exactly. But there was at one point where there was a point where I went all in and I ended up winning some points, and I went, and I got back up to about middle. He went all in at one point because he was almost done, and he ended up clawing back. And we were both, I want to say we were both at 900, 900 chips. And so in my hand, I had a queen and an 8. And, we bet in, and then the flop comes out, and it was a jack, a 10 and a 9. And so I had the flush off the flop. Or not the flush, sorry, the straight off the flop. And so I go all in. And then Blake, he goes all in. And I'm like, I was like trying to figure out what do you have. So we both flip our cards. We both had queen 8s. And it was just like, we tried to end the game. And the game was just like, no, you got to keep playing. And so I ended up losing a couple hands later. Because at that point I was like, all right, I'm just going to fucking do whatever. Because obviously the game doesn't care anymore. But it was fun to actually play some things with some friends at places, at someone's house. So it was good to at least do that. And it was definitely worth the $20 that we paid, especially because I wasn't one of the people that paid $40. So
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. But that's about it for me.
Right on. Well, then I think that pretty much wraps up what we've been playing, aka not much.
Shocking.
Yeah. So next episode might not be better because that won't be pre-Thanksgiving week. But the episode after Thanksgiving, Megan and I have like 5 days off together, so I will make sure that we play something. And then Zach and I are making some plans for that same week since we both have some time off.
Yeah, I have that. I have that entire week off as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that lets us move on over to Banter, where again, what the fuck, Jeff? I didn't realize you got both.
Yeah.
You motherfucker! I am so angry. I've been trying to find an Xbox, and I've had no luck.
Well, he was able to get it pre-ordered in that very first batch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I had like past cart. Like I didn't even have it in my cart. I'd hit check out and was processing my payment when it refreshed and said that item's no longer available. Fucking livid.
I ended up getting a bundle from Ant Online, like Atlantic Network Technologies or something. But that was after like everyone else had sold out, and so this one website still had these bundles that were like $700 for that.
What did you get with the bundle?
It was the Series X, the Elite Series 2 controller, and a 3-month card of
nice
Game Pass Ultimate.
Gotcha. Those controllers are what, normally $150? $125?
I think so.
Yeah. How is that controller?
It is very nice. It's so nice.
Yeah. it's a $150 controller. It better be fucking nice.
Like the D-pad is removable. You can just like
it has paddles too,
$180
right?
MSRP.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it has like the like ring finger, pinky finger paddles on the back. You can replace all of the just reaching for it. There it is. All the thumbsticks can be replaced.
So
the D-pad can be replaced with different types. You can put the paddles like different shapes on the back. There's even like trigger locks, so you can make them like really short or like a regular trigger, or like a very short trigger, or like a middle of the road trigger. So it'll actually like connect faster, so you don't have to press all the way through the trigger, if you know what I mean, to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it has like wireless charging. It comes with a case that you can plug through, and then it has like a little dock on there to charge it. And then it comes with a bunch of different analog sticks if you want different types or sizes or feels. Yeah, it's quite nice. The regular Xbox Series X controller just seems like another, nice Xbox controller.
Yeah.
It just has like a button in the center for something, but otherwise it seems pretty much the same, pretty similar.
Yeah, I don't remember what that is for, but and then so I have Game Pass on there, and then they added in the EA Play on there as well. So
that's only for the Xbox though, right?
Yeah, it's only on the console. Okay. It's not on the
That's
PC Game Pass version. But now I have all the EA games on my console if I wanted to play any of those, which I don't really, because I already played Star Wars Fallen Order. But I could if I wanted to.
You could show Adrian. You could show him a picture of you playing it, and just be like, "Meh, I don't want to play it anymore," and then just throw
it in the garbage.
Throw it in the garbage. Play some Factorio or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
I hate you guys.
But then I also got the PS5. The PS5.
I also want that.
The PS5 controller is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
With its fancy rumble and like haptic feedback triggers. So it actually will give you resistance on the triggers, which no controller I'm aware of has done that before.
No. Like one big thing I've heard of is Call of Duty, Black Ops, Cold War has each trigger for like each gun's trigger feels different.
Yeah, that's
the biggest thing I've heard. But otherwise, it's still like if you're, I know the game that came with it, Astro's Playroom. Is that what
Playground,
it's called?
Playroom, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that one has like it has a bunch of different ways that like it can have the haptic in there, and then like the new rumble and stuff like that to really give
the Astro's
sorry.
Astro's Playroom is like the tech demo for what makes the controller fancy, as well as like graphically.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty dense game. It's got like 4 worlds with 4 levels in each, and each of those worlds is themed to a different generation of PlayStation, and you go through them and collect different like artifacts, which are just like very, very high quality renders of various PlayStation equipment over the generations. Like if you want to look at a PlayStation 1 controller and it looks real good, you could do that.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of like these puzzle pieces you can collect to make these giant murals. There's these little like capsule things that you're collecting coins for, and you're buying these capsules that will give you little additions into the room. It's like I can't remember, like Astro's Playroom or Rec Room or something like that. But that's where it shows all of the different consoles and things, and you can interact with them, and like you can turn the little PlayStation symbol over, so it could be like the vertical or horizontal, like it was back in the day. And they purposely put it vertical and then have it horizontal, and you're like, no, this cannot stand. But you can actually go up and hit it, and it'll turn.
Nice.
Yeah.
I saw that they kept. So I know the PS5 controller has like the texture that if you like look at it under a microscope, more or less, you can see like a bunch of the circles, squares, X's, and whatnot. I've heard that like is on the console as well, but I'm not sure on that one. But if in that game you can actually, if you get close to like one of the textures, you can see that in there in the game. And then also like the raindrops fall and like there's splashes or X's or circles or squares.
There's a lot of that in the game, that's for sure. It's very much a like PlayStation the game, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's super neat.
Nice.
And I have played a little bit of that and the new Spider-Man, and since I never got...
Did you play it with performance mode or the high quality mode?
So I never had a Pro, so I have tried it with both. I don't know which one I love, because I love that frame rate. That frame rate is real nice, because it's, high frame rate. But you get
that ray tracing in there.
Yeah, the graphics are real good.
Yeah, especially if you go near a window or something like that, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, like real time reflections.
Oh, you make me so jealous.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. But the frame rate is nice because it's frame rate. And then I did a little bit of Miles Morales, and nice. That one looks real good. Even better than regular Spider-Man, because it was...
How's the new Peter Parker look?
Better? I didn't really like the other one. I was like, that doesn't look a lot like Peter Parker. This one looks more like Peter Parker.
Yeah.
But he also is like a little too young for where he should be in this world, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like the face makes it look like it doesn't match the... Ironically, they chose this one because it matches the guy's actual voice, like his face to voice better, like the actual voice actor.
Yeah.
But somehow it just it like I heard him talking and I was just like, well, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah. It's nice. I haven't had a whole ton of time with it, but besides over the weekend. So it looks good. I look forward to trying some of the other games that have had like the
improvements.
The improvements, yeah, because I kind of held off on playing The Last of Us Part 2 because I knew I would be getting this. So now I'm going to go back into Last of Us Part 2 and maybe play that with a higher frame rate because it was pretty low before.
Yeah. I'm doing the same thing for Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us too.
Yeah, I wanted to get Ghost of Tsushima, but the Target was running a buy two get one free, and I was like, oh, well, I'll go pick up the Spider-Man Remastered or Ultimate Edition, and then like Ghost of Tsushima, and maybe like one other game. And I get there, and like everything says buy two get one free, and then they're like, well, this one doesn't work for the buy two get one free, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, or that one you wanted, because it was all like no first party games were part of the buy two get one free. I was like,
I think Amazon has a I think Amazon has a buy two get one right now, but I don't know which games are. I know Assassin's Creed Valhalla is part of it, as is the new Call of Duty, but I don't know.
Which aren't first party games.
Correct. So it's probably similar, yeah.
Yeah, and I have no interest in those because I will get them for cheaper later anyways. So, well, maybe not Call of Duty. I just don't care about Call of Duty. I'll get Valhalla at some point when it's on sale over Black Friday for $30 already or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's. Otherwise, there's not really any fucking games for it. It's especially on the Xbox. Like the Xbox Series X enhanced games were like Forza Horizon 4, which I played some of, Sea of Thieves, Gears 5. And I was like, well, I've sort of played all of those on my PC, and they probably look very similar or just as good.
Yeah.
Forza Horizon 4 is still fun. I played that for a little while. I don't know if I'll install Sea of Thieves on my console. I guess I could play it on my big screen TV instead of my computer monitor, but it still looks pretty good on my PC.
Nice.
So,
did you get a ping pong ball to put on your Xbox?
I think that wasn't real.
It's a bummer.
Because someone had also posted like that later and was like, "That's a bunch of horse shit." And then all of the smoke coming out of the people's systems was literally just people vaping into them.
And the Xbox was like, "Do not vape into our system."
Yes, that would not be a good idea for anyone to do. Do not vape into your $500 system.
Yeah.
Do not get your Xbox high.
Mm-hmm.
You may drink and eat all the Doritos while being high, but do not feed them to your Xbox. Giant PS5 is sitting next to my PS4, which I will need to disconnect here soon. Because I will not need it anymore. Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't need it.
I guess I'll take it until I get my own 5.
Nope, don't do it. Just throw it away. It's like the spoiled food at the end of the thing. I can't give it to you.
I can't give it to you. You could get sick, and I would be liable. Yeah. So I can't give you my PS4.
Oh shit. Well,
but there's no new games, so who cares?
Yeah. Well, aside from all of that, now that I'm thoroughly jealous and pissed off because I didn't realize you got both, you lucky son of a bitch.
At least he didn't also get a 3080 as well. Right?
No. And if I got a 3080, I probably would have not gotten either of them, to be fair. Because the money I was going to use on the 3080 just went to fucking video game consoles. So.
Anyway, other banter things. I don't have much. Weather's been kind of mild. It was cold for a little bit, but now it's back to normal. It was super windy yesterday.
But it wasn't windy to like bring in the cold, which was weird.
No, it was just windy to knock your shit over.
Yeah. So Kyle Clark is like one of the local like weather people, news people. He does a bunch of different stuff. Like he famously likes to throw a shit fit about every time it snows in Denver, people take pictures of their patio furniture with snow on it, and he complains about that. But he had a tweet ahead of the windstorm that it was the the annual lawn furniture swap where all of the lawn furniture would move one house to the east. It's just like, well, hopefully your neighbor west of you has nicer things than you had, because it's all shifting.
Yep.
But sports wise, the Broncos got raffle stomped yesterday by the Raiders, but I didn't pay attention besides seeing the score like later in the day and like, oh yeah, they got beat real bad. I'm so over like football in general, but Broncos football in particular this season. Like, there's just too much other shit going on for me to care about that I can't bring myself to even remotely get upset. I do appreciate some of the stupid memes that come around on the Broncos sub like a day or two after the loss, though. So that's nice.
It was a rough one.
Yeah. It was to the Raiders, so it was division rivals, and we've got a lot of Raiders fans at work, and a lot of Chiefs fans, and a couple Packers fans, and then mostly Broncos fans beyond that. But yeah, that's it for me. Yeah, I don't have anything else. What about you guys? Any other bantery things you wanted to bring up?
Still playing WoW. I got the only thing I cared about in any of those Ice Crown rares, which was a 34 slot bag, because everything else was armor that's going to be replaced in like a week. So not really worrying about that. And then I actually leveled something else up to level 50 now, because every time I'm playing something that isn't a Fury Warrior, I'm like, but I could be playing a Fury Warrior instead. It was my Elemental Shaman, which I like just because it feels chaotic like the Fury Warrior, but as spell, especially with Chain Lightning. So I've just been playing with my friend. That's been going well. I finished Halo 3 ODST.
Did you save all the engineers?
No. I want to say I killed so many of them. Because I forgot about it, and then at the very end, they're like, but these are good guys. And you're like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
I killed like one or two dozen, at least. But yeah. So now we've got Halo Reach to work through, and then Halo 4 should come on the PC this week or next, I think.
Yeah, they just announced that pretty recently.
So still hoping for whatever stupid reason that Halo 5 comes on the PC, but I'm not expecting anything.
Yeah.
And then we can finish it in time for Halo Infinite some point next year.
Yeah.
They
were just like, we're delaying this game. It's not like they delayed it and here's the new date. It was like, we're delaying and good luck.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then a couple of months later, by the way, we have new
the creative director is now not here anymore.
Yep. So everything seems fine.
Everything's fine. Yeah, seems fine. That sounds fine.
Jeff, what about you? You got anything?
Anything else?
No, I don't think so. Just, beer is continuing to be beer.
Right on. I did think of one other thing to mention that's kind of an interesting little bantery point.
It's too late. Your time
it's
has
not.
passed. No, your time has passed. We have rules here, man. This isn't Vietnam.
No, we don't. We do not have rules here. Come on. So, as almost anyone who's been paying attention to literally anything in the world knows, at least anything related to the U.S. in the world, sure that makes sense. COVID taking off, spiking like crazy here in the U.S. My fiance, as many of you know, is an ICU nurse at a hospital and has had COVID patients in the past when we had like our first surge, has a lot of patients now, super stressed, all of that. That's neither here nor there. That's just some background context. Her hospital, because they are so like desperate for nurses to work even more and they need more people covering more shifts, despite hiring all summer and training all summer, they're still short-staffed. They authorized a $40 an hour bonus for every hour that any nurse works over 36 hours at her hospital.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's thinking about picking up an extra 1 to 2 shifts every 2 weeks. So like either 1 shift a week or like 1 shift every 2 weeks. Because the bonus alone would be an extra $500 per extra shift she picks up.
Because each shift is $12 or 12 hours, right?
Is 12 hours.
Yeah.
And that $40 an hour bonus is on top of overtime. So she already makes like well over $30 an hour, which is at overtime with the time and a half is over $45 an hour, plus the $40 an hour bonus. So she'll be hitting like
85?
80 to $90 an hour. Because I don't remember exactly what she makes. I know it's over 30. So she's hitting like over $80 an hour for every extra shift she picks up, basically, which is fucking bonkers. So despite it being super stressed and her being crazy stressed and everything being bonkers, she's like, that might be enough money to actually make me pick up extra shifts. Like, yeah, I don't blame you.
Okay. I will say that was interesting enough to warrant the interruption and the gross disregard of our rules and procedures here.
Yeah, well, you can submit a formal censor through our normal back channel paperwork methods.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm the one that approves it, so it's going through to the next level. So
okay. And I think the next level's a podcast vote. I assume Jeff's a yay,
so that's
it
probably
passes
gonna go
there.
through.
So I look forward to having the demerit shit delivered to me at some point to go in my file. That wraps up news and banter. Jeff, is there a bloody minute this week?
No, but there is some Blood Bowl news.
Sure, go for it.
So the Teams of Legend PDF has released. So that is 6 teams that haven't had new models yet, so they don't have new rules. So as far as Games Workshop is concerned, they don't fucking exist yet. But they did release a roster for Amazons, Chaos Dwarves, High Elves, Norse, Tomb Kings, and Vampires, with some alterations. So Amazons just got like a 5k price increase on their throwers and catchers. And of course all these teams have a pass skill now. Chaos Dwarves, I couldn't tell you if anything actually changed. Their prices are the same. The only thing is their passing skills are like 6+. Their Hobgoblins are like a 4+ throw, which with their Edge 3 is not great. So they will continue not to be a very good passing team, but now even worse. High Elves are just about the same. They had a 10k increase to their throwers because now they have Cloudburster, which is a new skill that makes passes, you can't intercept them, or it's harder to intercept them because it goes so high or something. I don't have the skill list in front of me, so that's the only real change on them. Norse actually got a 5k decrease for their werewolf people, which are their frenzy strength 4 dudes.
Okay.
Tomb Kings, no points changes. Their thrower can throw on the 3+, which is better than they used to could. Everyone else has a 6+. Tomb Guardians can't throw. But the throwers and blitzers got Thick Skull, which means they will be stunned on an 8 instead of KO'd. Because they're all skeletons. So the skeletons had Thick Skull, so I guess they're kind of getting a buff by all getting Thick Skull. Vampires. So they've got their 2+ Edge still. Their pass is a 3+, which they would have had like a 2+, of course, before the passing stuff. But they no longer have Bloodlust, which is very annoying. Bloodlust was if you rolled a 1 and you couldn't end next to a Thrall lineman by the end of your action, or caused a turnover and fell down or whatever, you would just run off the field to eat someone in the crowd and go into the reserves box. So your player would just leave the pitch. That is no longer a thing. Now they have Animal Savagery, which I believe is like a 2+, and on a 1 they make an armor roll against a fellow teammate if possible. So before, when you bit a Thrall, it was just a straight injury roll. You didn't roll armor and then roll injury. You went stun, KO, or casualty. Now, with Animal Savagery, you actually have to make an armor roll, which will give that another, buffer for eating your own players. But now it can actually eat your other blitzers, or your other vampire blitzers. So you could Animal Savagery another vampire, but if you space it out well enough and you Animal Savagery and you're not next to any friendly players, it just doesn't happen, and you get to continue your action. So it's much better than Bloodlust, in my opinion. But there is no team roster for Khorne or Slann, frogs. I want to say those were teams that were made in the Blood Bowl 1 and Blood Bowl 2 games of like the computer digital versions. And I'm not sure how much Games Workshop really wants to continue supporting those. So they don't technically exist right now, even in this team of Legend. But we'll see what happens with them down the road, because they were official like NAF teams. They could be played in tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. I doubt Games Workshop will support them without a revamp, which is what the new team, the Imperial Nobility, is basically a rework of Bretonnian. So maybe there could be some new versions of the Slann or Khorne coming from GW down the line, but right now, not supported. Pre-orders went out for Season 2, so that'll be arriving around Thanksgiving, and then we'll have the new rule set in hand that I could have not read anywhere else before it came out.
No.
It's all new. I don't know what any of the new rules are.
Well then.
That's Blood Bowl.
Indeed. No Kingdom Death Hour because
Paul's been moving house.
Yeah. So that lets us move right over into some news and Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Starting with news.
Yes. First up in news, Fantasy Flight is moving house of Star Wars.
They're mini games.
They're miniature games. They're are moving to another company, Atomic Mass Games, who is also under the Asmodee umbrella. They did the Marvel Crisis Protocol.
That sounds right.
Which was the minis game that got announced the same time as the Marvel Champions LCG, and now they will be taking the reins of X-Wing, Legion, and Armada for all future development.
Yeah, and they are also, as part of this press release, they announced that Simone Elliott, who basically was in charge of Fantasy Flight's relationship with Lucasfilm licensing since 2015, will move over and take over leading Atomic Mass Games as the head of studio. So they're basically, not just moving the titles over there, they're moving a lot of people who have been key in maintaining the titles and developing the games and everything over to Atomic Mass Games. And then that's just going to be where they focus all their Star Wars miniature stuff.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if that just becomes their mini game wing.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Or this is them basically saying, this is our mini game developer now.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, Legion's a little different than X-Wing and Armada, because X-Wing and Armada are kind of, I don't know,
space
construction, like spacecraft construction games, because you make your little unit of ships, but there's no painting or construction, where Legion's more of a tabletop miniature war game with all the fancy construction and painting and things like that.
Right.
And that's what Crisis Protocol was, so I wonder how they'll deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I don't know. Those games are so expensive and way out of my league to catch up on them in any way, shape, or form at this point. So,
fuck it.
Yeah.
Armada specifically has always been really pricey.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I know, crazy expensive.
Like they still have stuff coming out, like there's like Clone Wars Armada stuff coming out now. I think that's their next big set.
Mm-hmm.
Because Clone Wars just came out for Legion too.
What was the ridiculous idea that somebody had of playing the 2-player Star Wars game Rebellion, but handling all of the airship battles using Armada and X-Wing, and then all of the ground battles by playing Legion?
That would be impossible.
Nightmare. It would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's possible. It's just, technically possible. Not feasible.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's it for Fantasy Flight Star Wars news.
Yeah. It sounds like basically Fantasy Flight's going to still make Star Wars games, but they're just going to be board games, like Outer Rim and stuff like that.
Yeah.
but no longer the mini stuff.
Nope.
Last up in news, I don't know what the board game analysis part 3 thing came out, so we're going to talk about that.
Yes. So this is something we've had on our little like Google sheet of things to talk about for a long time, because when it first came out, it was pretty much the dude was like, hey, here's part 1 of a 3-part series where I'm going to like deep dive into BGG data. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I would love to talk about that. Let's put this on the list. And once all 3 of them are out, we can talk about them all as once. All at once.
Part 1 came out March in 2018, and then part 2 came out in December in 2018. So when we saw that, we're like, oh, well, 3 will come out within 6 months or so, and then we can talk about all of them.
Yeah.
Well, now it's November of 2020, so
yes. And part 3 technically came out back in September, but I had stopped checking the blog to see when it would be updated. And then I don't remember what made me look last week. And I was like, oh, shit, it's actually like updated. This is bonkers. So we're really mainly going to talk about 3. I'm going to give a quick overview of what 1 and 2 were, especially because in retrospect, I didn't need to wait to talk about them all at once because they're mostly standalone posts. I thought they were like going to build on each other, and so it would make better sense to talk about them all at once. That's not the case. So part 1 of this, so it's from Dinesh Vadvani, and it's over on his blog that's all about Python and data analysis stuff. So keep in mind this first part was originally posted in March of 2018, so the data set is from around then. So he went and pulled a bunch of data from Kaggle and GitHub for all of the stuff on BGG. Went through, like he has a note at the beginning about sampling bias because different games are underrepresented on BGG just based on trends of who's part of BGG and who isn't and whatnot. But then he looks at things like, the idea of the golden age of board gaming. So he looks at like board game publication rate over time, the board game ratings by publication year, and has some really cool charts to go along with it. The publication rate over time is really interesting because it is basically exponential going back to the 1900s and largely follows Moore's Law, where it doubles every like 12 and a half years. So back in March of 2018, you could expect 3,500 new games a year, and that number increased about 5.7% a year. There's some other cool stuff in that first blog post. If you haven't ever seen it, I recommend checking it out. He looks at some stuff like related to different mechanics, like what some of the most popular mechanics are and how they've changed over the last like 20 years. And just stuff like that. Same thing for like themes and all of that. Some cool stuff there. Part 2 is about complexity biases. And so that one, he really dives into like people's varying views on like what is complex and what isn't. And it talks about like how like for instance, the BGG Top 100 is disproportionately dominated by big complex games. So it's not great if you're like a brand new board gamer going and picking like one of the top 100 games. And I kind of vaguely remember this, like when I was first getting into board gaming, my brother did exactly that. He was like, oh, my brother, me, is into board gaming. Let me buy him a board game. And he found like BGG top 10 list or something and bought the number 1 game on there, just sight unseen. Like, oh, it's the number 1 game. It must be the best. I'll get this for him. And that was Eclipse at a time that I was not at all prepared for Eclipse.
Some would say we're still not prepared for Eclipse.
Yeah. I mean, I do love Eclipse, and I'm very happy that he got it for me. It means a lot. But the entire process, thought process behind getting it was not exactly something that would regularly work out. It worked out in this case. But yeah, so he looks at a bunch of different things like about complexity bias and correcting for it, and stuff like that, and then gives a new like BGG ranking balanced for that complexity bias, which at the time, December of 2018, gave a top 5 of Pandemic Legacy Season 1, Codenames, Seven Wonders Duel, Gloomhaven, and Crokinole. was the top 5 with his new re-weighted BGG top 5. So it's like it pulled Codenames from 38 to 2 and Crokinole from 69 to 5. So thought that was kind of interesting. Part 3, which is all new, and so part 3, since he did those other 2, BGG went through some major overhauls. Like they changed a lot of their stuff for mechanics and how they apply those, and tags and all kinds of different things got changed up in their data set. So this one, he wanted to look more at trends at an individual level. So previously he looked at like broad trends, and this one he wanted to look more at the kinds of game ratings that individual users gave, and trying to find look for similarities there. Like, you know, people who rate at game X high also rate games Y and Z high. So like if you like game X, there's a good chance you'd like Y and Z, kind of a thing. He does point out that they looked into doing it for the entire catalog of BGG, but it was going to be prohibitively huge amount of data. So it is only for the top 500 games, as well as an additional 53 hand-picked samples of very successful recent titles like Wingspan, Res Arcana, things like that, to ultimately get to 553 games, which ended up still being 7.5 million individual ratings from 265,000 unique BGG accounts. So that's pretty cool. And then he goes and looks at like the similarity of ratings that, like, you know, people who rate Monopoly one way tend to rate Yahtzee similarly. And like ditto, like people who rate Monopoly rate Uno similarly. But like people who rate Uno highly don't tend to rate Scythe highly. Like there's no correlation there. So, gives some cool data, little like images and things. Like he does this cool scatter point where he like groups the games in a interesting little, an interactive chart that kind of groups them based on like broad similarities. The coolest thing I think is that he made a whole little interactive dashboard. BGG similarity dashboard.herokuapp.com. And so on this little tool, you can choose a game. Like, say, I can choose Food Chain Magnate, and anybody who was paying attention last week in the Slack channel already knows where this is going. I can choose Food Chain Magnate because that's one of my favorite games. And it will give me a list of 10 games that are the most similar to Food Chain Magnate. And so the 10 games that are the most similar. The Gallerist. Okay, sure, I can see that. I like Food Chain. I also really like Gallerist. Fields of Arle. I've heard great things. I've been meaning to play it for a long time. Sure, we're still on the right path. Age of Steam. Boom, we're there. I like Age of Steam. That's great. Dominant Species. Yeah, I used to really like Dominant Species. It's showing its age. Okay, you know, we're getting a little sketchy. We're getting on some rockier territory. Clans of Caledonia. I only played it once, but it didn't grab me like Food Chain. And then we come to this one. Number 7 here. Kingdom Death Monster is not 7, 6. That's the 6th most similar game to Food Chain Magnate. And then it rounds out with Le Havre, Brass, Mombasa, and Automobile, which Le Havre and Brass also being 2 games I really, really like. So it's like, there's a lot of games I really like on that list, so they seem to be pretty accurate. And then there's Kingdom Death. And maybe I need to give Kingdom Death a try. Zach went ahead and popped that bubble for me by pointing out that that's probably just because there's not a lot of games that are actually similar to Food Chain Magnate. And in fact, if you go look at Kingdom Death, you get an entirely different top 10, suggesting that like if you like Kingdom Death, you don't want to necessarily go to Food Chain.
Yeah, it was like Seventh Continent, some Eldritch Horror stuff, things that
Blood
would
Bowl
make
3rd edition, This War of Mine.
Yeah, stuff that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So.
But it's still a really interesting little bit of data, the way he pulled all this together, and it's a fun little, like, you know, find similar games with core appeal to whatever thing you happen to like. You know, like Le Havre. If you like Le Havre, you probably would like Aura, Labora, and Agricola. Like, they tend to be very similarly rated together, which, go figure, those are all Uwe Rosenberg games.
Hero Quest is a weird one, because its most similar game is Battleship.
I think that's probably it's got to be a Hero Quest is old enough that it gets some of those like weird votes that fall for some of those older games.
I think it was another Milton Bradley game, maybe.
Yeah. If you like Lupin Louie, which we all do, as drunken Dex game, Animal Upon Animal, Pitch Car, and DC Comics deck building game. So,
Got it.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. If you like Munchkin, you'll like Bane and Exploding Kittens and Gloom and Flux.
Yeah, that tracks. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a fun little tool. It's interesting to see like the things that actually make sense versus the things that are like, wait a second. If you, yeah. So, go check it out. Go play around with it.
And check out the older stuff too.
Yeah. And it's one of those, like, I do really regret not like diving into them deeper when he had first released them. I just thought that they were going to come out in a more, concise time. And then they didn't. So.
Womp womp.
Womp womp indeed. What's one more good one I can do here? Just to end this Race for the Galaxy. Apparently I need to play Res Arcana. That's the number one.
Followed by Roll for the
Roll for the Galaxy is number 2. Agricola is number 3. Dominion's number 4. So,
I can really see the Agricola roots in that. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
It's definitely another one where the similarity values are pretty low. Kind of like the food chain one. Like, there's just turns out not a lot like Race for the Galaxy. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the news stuff. Like I said, definitely go check out that stuff from Dinesh Vattvani and his BG analysis, board game analysis.
And that leads us
moving on to Kickstarter.
Yes. First up in Kickstarter, we have a game we talked about sort of last week. Harry Potter Catch the Snitch, a Wizard's Sports board game. This one is quite well funded. $143,000 of its $53,000 goal, just under 1,000 backers. Still 3 weeks left to pledge this one at its most popular pledge of $155.
Yeah, so after we shit all over this last week for pulling their Kickstarter and blaming it on the election, they're back and have, as Jeff just demonstrated, wildly succeeded. So basically, it's the exact same Kickstarter. We already kind of talked about it last week, so I'm not going to really go into it. It's a 2-player Quidditch game with minis and stuff. They did add some stuff down at the bottom that I don't know if I just didn't notice because I didn't scroll down far enough because it's way the fuck down there, or if they did actually add it on this one. But down past all of the videos and things, they have a whole section on key elements and how you are like playing cards, and it's 2 phases of the game. Like the first phase, you're doing different tactics and trying to gain snitch cards, and then when the golden snitch appears, the seekers are trying to get it. And having success in the first phase by getting the most snitch cards gives you a leg up on ultimately, hopefully, catching the main snitch. Which, for those of you who don't know, like pretty much everyone on the planet agrees that J.K. Rowling clearly had no fucking clue what she was doing when she made up the game of Quidditch, because it doesn't make any fucking sense the way like the snitch is worth so many more points, and winning that just invalidates everything that happened before it, basically. But yeah, so they had a little bit more stuff like that in there that I just didn't see before. Otherwise, it's the same photos of the same minis, the same shit. They still do the, like, if you get this on the Kickstarter, you'll get 2 copies of Harry Potter, as long as you also get the Hero add-on, because there's a Harry Potter miniature included only for the Kickstarter for the base game. And then if you get the Hero set, it has a slightly different Harry Potter sculpt. So you can have 2 Harry Potters. So, go nuts. But yeah, it still doesn't look that good to me. But they got a whole lot of videos and stuff, too, that I didn't super notice before from, like, Dice Tower and, like, legit people. It's not, like, just a bunch of people who, if you give them money, they'll say nice things about your game.
Or sometimes not say nice things about your game.
Yeah. Actually, no, and I said there was one from Dice Tower, and that's just because there was a dude in a fedora, and I assumed that it was... I assumed it was Dice Tower. It's not. And so I was wrong. They don't have any real they don't. they definitely have like Tantrum House, who definitely I think fall in that if you pay us money, we'll say nice things about your game category.
Do not know enough about them.
And then I don't recognize any of the other people who did videos for them. So grain of salt.
Yes.
Anyway, we talked about it last week, so we can move on from that. That's Harry Potter. That's Wizarding World Harry Potter Catch the Snitch, a Wizard Sport board game. So it's a mouthful.
Indeed.
Next up,
we have Transcontinental. This one is well-funded for about $41,000 of its $15,000 goal, just over 800 backers, and 3 weeks left to pledge this one at its most popular pledge of $52.
Yeah. So
it's a choo-choo game.
Transcontinental is a choo-choo game. It is an award-winning worker placement pick-up and deliver game for 1 to 4 players about building the Canadian Transcontinental Railway. So they say it's a medium weight Euro. And it's mostly worker placement. Like from what I'm looking at, there's a little bit of pick up and deliver, but that's kind of essentially what you're doing is there's a couple different parts of the board. It's a little bit busy, especially if you watch the Rado video, which I tried to do. So there's like a train that has an engine and some cars that can hold some goods. And so you're trying to get goods on those cars and then move them around a little bit. At the start of the game, the train has just a few spaces from like the East Coast towards like, I don't know, St. Louis or whatever. I don't think and it's in Canada, so it's not to St. Louis, but it's like from vaguely east part of Canada to a little bit west. And so the first part of the game, you play like 5 phases. You do the telegram westward phase, then the train travels west. Then you do some expansion phase, and then you do telegrams going east, and then the train goes east. So that's really fancy ways of them saying the telegram phases for east and west are placing worker placement, like you're placing your tokens. Then the travel phase, as the train moves, when it gets to a spot that has a worker on it, whether it's going west in the beginning or coming back east in the later part of the round, if there's a worker on a space, you can do your actions on that space. And then once the train reaches the end of the track going west in the middle of those 2 phases, that's where you do some expansion. You do like the expanding the train line phase. And so it's got some interesting things like that worker placement phase. The way the track's laid out, you're going to have actions on the top of the track and on the bottom of the track. And each action straddles 2 worker placement spots. But the top and bottom tracks are staggered just a little bit so that, like, say you want the action on the bottom of the track. There's 2 spots where you can get it, but you'll have a different top action depending on which spot you take. So there's a little bit of room to be like, oh, I really want this, and I would like to get that second action with it, but if I don't, I'll take this other action instead, as long as nobody screws you out of both spots. And so you do that as the train moves along. Like at the start of the game, everybody just gets 3 workers to place. It's also important, like if you place all of your workers in the westward phase, you don't get to place any when it comes back. Like it's any that you have left over you can place when it comes back. So you might want to hold one back in that initial phase, or 2, or whatever, or all 3. Who knows? When it reaches that middle spot, that's where you will all bid to, like, you secretly bid to use the different resources on the train to potentially, like, do things like expand the train or like adding different cars, use some of the resources to get victory points, or most importantly, unlock like future phases of the train track. So you're slowly clearing wilderness, which opens up more spaces for worker placement with more actions. And the actions tend to repeat themselves. Like there's a fair amount of repeating, but they get more powerful the further westward you go. And it sounds like there's some opportunities to unlock additional workers as the game goes on. And you basically play until it reaches the westward, like, railroad spike, at which point you have built the Transcontinental Canadian Railway, and you go through some endgame scoring, and whoever has the most points is the victor. So that's a rough, rambly, completely uninterrupted by my co-hosts explanation of Transcontinental that I don't know if it made any sense. But it looks interesting, and they do a better job of explaining it, sort of, on the Kickstarter.
It looks neat. It's got a good style.
I like the art style a lot. It seems like it's, people will joke, like that it's a train game, but it seems very different from any other train games I've played. The train theme is well implemented, I think. I like the way the train, like, goes west and then comes back, and so you have, like, 2 different rounds of worker placement, depending on when you've placed yours. So if you're in a 4-player game and the spots you want get taken right away by the first 3 players, there might be a reason for you to just, maybe only place 1 in that first phase, because they clear as they go along. So as the train goes west and people resolve their actions, they take their workers off the spots. So once the train hits that far west point, you do all the bidding and expansion, and it turns to go back east. You do that east placement. Everything that was there in the west is gone. So it gives you a chance to get on spots that were opened up by people not, already getting to do their actions. So yeah.
The Conductor's Pledge seems neat as well. Gives you a nice wooden box.
Yeah, if you're willing to spend almost $200 to get said wooden box. It is a nice wooden box, though. Walnut and maple.
Solid box.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I threw this one on my, like, saved projects. I'll come back and look at it if I remember. If I don't, then it wasn't meant to be. But I've also been backing too many Kickstarters lately. I feel like I need to pump the brakes a bit. So, but I don't know.
The sheer amount of games that we haven't been playing.
I know. Exactly. It's like, why am I getting new games? I'm not even playing the games I have right now. But yeah. So, Transcontinental. Or the Transcontinental, rather. Supposedly award-winning. It won some Canadian award. Nobody cares about Canadian awards. So, I mean, maybe some of the Canadian, followers. Chad, if he even still listens to the podcast, he might just troll people in Slack. / get trolled by Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I also really like the art style. But anyway,
I like some of it. But I don't like how the people look.
No, the main people cards are not ideal. Yeah. That brings us to our final Kickstarter, I believe.
It does. Our final Kickstarter is The Pursuit of Happiness, Big Box and Nostalgia expansion. Very well funded, $240,000 of its $20,000 goal. Just about 2,800 backers and 2 weeks left to pledge. This one at its most popular pledge level of $60.
Yeah. Yeah, that 60 is only narrowly ahead of the $150 pledge.
Yeah.
Well, the 151 is all in, which is the base game, the big box to hold everything, the 3 expansions, the deluxe component upgrades, and then the 4 promo packs. So you're getting a lot for it.
Yes. So anyhow, Pursuit of Happiness, Big Box, and Nostalgia Edition. So, this is exactly what it sounds like. It's a big box version of, the Pursuit of Happiness. So the base pledge there that Jeff was talking about that has the most backers, is the Deluxe, Big Box Deluxe. It's a big, huge box that will hold the base game and its first 2 expansions, if you have them. It will give you a deluxe components upgrade kit, and then any stretch goals that this Kickstarter gets. So they have a whole bunch of background information on Pursuit of Happiness. Like it launched on Kickstarter back in 2015 and was super successful. They did a expansion. Community was their first expansion. It was 2017 on Kickstarter. Then Experiences in 2019, also on Kickstarter. And then they've had a bunch of different mini expansions and promo material and things like that. And so there's a lot of stuff. And so there's been some push to get a big box version. And so that's what this Kickstarter is all about. It does also add the Nostalgia expansion. which essentially introduces the concept of reminiscences.
About what?
Reminiscences.
Reminiscences. You got one
Stop
more
it.
time.
I got it the second time you were just talking over. Reminiscences. God damn it. Why can't I say this word?
I don't know.
Reminiscences. Fond childhood memories, unfulfilled desires, dreams, and aspirations. The Reminiscence deck features double-sided cards that, when their requirements are met, unlock unique card types and gameplay options. You deal them out at the beginning of the game, and then they can help drive some of your game choices as they give you, they really try to help with planning ahead in the game. It also enriches existing card types like projects, items, activities, things like that, in order to guarantee a true blast from the past experience. And then there's also the deluxe edition components, which they're
they look. They look good, but yeah. I tell you, those hands. So there's this thing. It's two purple hands, shaking hands. I think it's like friendship or something like that. They look very creepy.
They're super creepy.
It reminds me.
There's too many fingers.
Yeah. Somehow, yes. It reminds me of, I saw some pictures online, and it was basically of handguns, but instead of it was like a regular gun, but instead of a grip, it was just a hand in there. So you're shaking someone's hand when you go to shoot the gun and something like that. It looked very weird, and that instantly reminded me of that.
It makes me think of a face hugger.
Also, yes.
Yeah. So that's the problem with these hands. I don't even know what to search for that handgun thing. I was going to try and look it up. But I know if I search for handgun hands, it's just going to be weird gun shit. Anyway, so the weird thing with these hands, the deluxe upgrade components, it's that the fingers are too thin. So it makes them look very spidery. No one I know has fingers so thin that a normal handshake grip has space between all of the fingers.
Yeah,
like these do.
They're getting all up on each other's hands.
Yeah, that's a very intimate handshake.
Yeah.
I assure you,
handshakes
when I
aren't supposed to aren't supposed to happen this long. And they will happen for eternity because it is now saved.
When I shake hands, my hands are in the same general shape as they are when I wear a mitten. Whereas in this case, they're definitely gloves. And it's uncomfortable.
Yes. I just sent a picture of that, by the way.
It looks like something from Metal Gear.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very creepy.
Oh, it's fantastic. Anyway, back to the Kickstarter. But yeah, aside from the creepy friendship hands, all the other tokens look really cool. The knowledge tokens are they look like books. They got cool money tokens, and the creativity ones are like light bulbs that have a flat side so they actually sit on the table and don't just roll off. Whole bunch of cool upgraded stuff like that. They have information on here if you're completely new to the game about what those original expansions, the community and experiences, what those included, things like that. They also have some additional purchase options for some of the add-ons and things, like some of the mini expansions, things like that, like Thug Life or one of their holiday packs or promo packs. You can get premium sleeves and standard sleeves that are set to fit the game from Artipia and a bunch of stuff like that. They're crushing stretch goals, so there's a whole bunch of stretch goals that have been unlocked, adding a bunch of new cards and things like that. They're coming up on the 240,000 one, which they're so fucking close right now. They'll definitely unlock that by the time we finish recording tonight.
Yes.
And then after that one, they'll be working on the 250,000 one, which adds a whole new module, the school. So, Zach, you've actually played Pursuit of Happiness, haven't you?
I have, yes. I played the base game. I had it for a while. I want to say I ended up giving it away just because I didn't get much play out of it. but it was more or less like the Euro version of life. And so it had some interesting mechanics in terms of like your workers, like your worker placement tokens was actually time, because you can only spend so much time in I think it's the rounds are decades, but you can only spend so much time doing stuff. And as you, like, if you get jobs, you have to spend part of your time doing that. If you get into a relationship or you have kids, you have to spend time doing those. But so you have to focus on things, but it doesn't say which way, like, focusing on certain things is better than others. Like, it's not saying like you have to have a job in order to have like the best life, or you have to have kids, or you have to be married, or anything like that. You can just sort of pursue what you want in there, and then whoever does the best job at the end wins. And so it was interesting. I just remember that my first play of it was at game night, which, as you know, can make things a bit longer than you would like. So I think that was my main problem with it. But I remember enjoying it enough and liking the idea to want to give it another shot. I have to see if I still have it or not.
Cool. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of want to try it, but I don't care to actually buy it. So
understandable. I mean, it's
if somebody else gets it, I'd be down.
Yeah, it's definitely like midweight, like maybe not like light midweight, but in between those two. So like light midweight, or light midweight, I guess would be leading towards that. But yeah.
It's definitely got like I like some of the things from Artipia, and I like some of those light to mid-light worker placements that have good theme connections, and it seems like it would. It's just not a theme I really feel like I want to own. But I don't know. Yeah, that wraps up Kickstarters. So we are done with Kickstarters and can move on to some listener feedback, because Jeff got an email.
Yeah. Emails at milehighgameguys.com if you would like to send us an email. Like this wonderful person, Sean, did. This email being titled, Listener Feedback. Hi all. I'm relatively new to board gaming, at least beyond the standard Monopoly, Clue, etc. I got my first real board game late last year, which was Batman Gotham City Chronicles. Holy shit. That was certainly one to start with.
That was a game.
Yeah. Which was a real learning curve for me, especially since I had no real idea what I was getting myself into. Yeah, you sure got yourself into a fuckload of miniatures. As COVID took hold shortly thereafter, I still struggle playing it, but I have a lot of fun trying. Since then, I have been mainlining Kickstarter and found that I have both an addiction problem and that I like more Ameritrash/licensed games. I've gone...
Kickstarter can be bad for both of those.
Yes.
When you get the addiction, and then also if you like thematic Ameritrash games, they got plenty of those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have gone on to purchase Big Trouble in Little China, Tainted Grail, I know, not licensed, Marvel United, Marvel Champions, Evil Dead 2, Star Wars X-Wing, a couple of tiny epic games to name a few, and a whole lot of Kickstarters that have yet to arrive. So far, really enjoying them, but since COVID kicked in shortly after I started, I wasn't able to find a gaming group, and have been playing strictly solo. So I have two questions. Well, before we get to the question part, like, Big Trouble in Little China, I didn't play that one. I played the Legendary one. It was a Legendary game. Tainted Grail, yes. Zach still hasn't received yet, so...
No, but I might. There's a possibility of me getting it before the end of the year, so...
Marvel United is that, like, chibi... Was it Simon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Marvel Champions is fantastic. Evil Dead 2, I didn't hear great things, and that was the one that they needed to be saved by another company.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah.
It may or may not be in hands, or have people played it?
No, I think there are some people that have it, but then other, like, I want to say like 25% of people got it, and then the other people got boned until they got saved by that other company.
Okay. Right now, its BGG rating is 2.4, so I'm assuming that's not the...
They should all be out. Evil Dead 2 should all be out.
They should?
Like, They have an update from October 6th that says if you have not received your game, check the status and then follow up.
Okay.
Because it should be out.
Seems there was another listing for the Evil Dead board game. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, that game exists. And then X-Wing, we talked a little bit about X-Wing and its nightmarish amount of content earlier, and the Tiny Epic games, which I have not played any of in quite some time.
Same here. I wonder which ones they got.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean, let us know which ones you got.
Yeah.
Join the Slack channel.
On to the questions. 1. As someone starting the hobby in my early 40s in a fairly populated city, I'm curious what your do's and don'ts for finding groups or players, as I've heard a ton of horror stories.
So, I don't know if we are necessarily the best people for advice on this because, I don't know, like, maybe Jeff can because he came into an established group and, like, found a way to fit in. But, like, for me...
And it's been a horror story ever since.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just lucked out. I went to a random game night that showed up on the local Reddit for Denver, and the people there were cool enough, and I had enough fun that I took it over and started running it. And, like, Zach was back at that very first one also, so I feel like Zach and I just got fucking lucky.
Yes.
And, like, it's possible that had we joined a different group or something, that it would have been not as fun, and it would have not taken off like it did. If you were joining our group here in Denver, the biggest piece of advice that I give to anybody, and that I really try to stress, like especially for new players, given where we game, and this isn't necessarily broad advice depending on like what group you're joining. If you're joining a group that meets at like a private residence or even like a game store where like you have a much more solid idea of like who's there for game night, it's a little bit different because, like, it's easier for people to be like, oh, if you're here, you're probably here for game night. We do ours at, like, bars and breweries and restaurants. So it's hard for us to know, like, that guy who's sitting at the bar and keeps looking over at board games, is it someone who's like, what the fuck are these nerds doing? Or is it someone that's like, I'm a shy nerd and I don't know how to approach all these other nerds to play games with them? So like, make some kind of an effort to, like, find somebody who's, like, in charge. Like I tell people, like, if you need help getting involved in the group, ask somebody to point out Adrian, which is me. That way I can be like, hey, you're new. Awesome. Nice to meet you. What kind of games do you like? Oh, you like these kinds? Well, let me introduce you to these people who also like those kind of games, kind of a thing. So that's my biggest bit of advice. If you're joining a new group, talk to people. Like, it's hard. Like, you got to step outside of your shell sometimes. I'm not always the best at that myself when I'm in a brand new group where I don't know anybody. It's intimidating. It really is. But making that little bit of an effort to like be like, hey, who's in charge around here? Hi, I'm new. What's the deal? Can go a long way towards like getting into a group. Otherwise, like, for don't be creepy. That's easier said than done sometimes, I think, for some people. But like, just go there, like, don't go expecting anything other than getting to play some games. Don't go expecting to like meet a new best friend or a significant other or to have the like time of your life. Like, go in with like just some really basic level expectations of like, I want to meet some people and play some games, and start there. And you can build off of that. Like, that's a very easy, simple goal to do for your first night at a new group.
Right. I would also say, just sort of when you get there, try to see if you can gauge just like what kind of group it is in a way.
Yes.
So don't like if like you can usually tell pretty quickly on if like it's a group that like doesn't curse much or like is a little bit more reserved or super outspoken, or if they're like real competitive or they're just there to have a good time. And a lot of times, if you're very aggressive in some way against some of those things, it can put some people off. So not to say that cursing's good or bad, but like, don't just be like, "What up, fuckers?" like as soon as you walk up, because then
yeah, because it might be a group that's not all about that. Our group, like, exactly. That's what great. Like, that's a great way to join Denver game night.
Exactly.
and vice versa. Like, we had an experience with like somebody who got fairly upset that like one of the first times they came to our game night, we were all playing werewolf, and we had no problem like the Cupid character making two guys lovers. But they had a problem with that. Like if you're going to bring that kind of baggage to a group, then, that's just one of those things like you'll learn if that's something that's going to bother you. I don't mean to tell you like, oh, don't go out and play games with people. Like, no, like you just got to be aware that like not all groups have those same feelings about things. And so it might make it easier and or harder for you to find group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lucked out. I don't know, Jeff, what about you? You joined our group like years into the group and had a fair amount of success getting involved. Do you have any advice on being a new person joining an existing game group?
Yeah, I'll just show up, but not everyone has the personality to just sort of do that. I mean, even if you're just doing like game groups at home, just, I don't know, meet the person first before you just show up at their house, or talk to them in some fashion so you don't show up to some fucking weirdo's nightmare cabin of chains and leather.
May definitely needs to send us a follow-up email about her experiences with the game group that was like also trying to find people for an orgy. 'Cause awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're into orgies, that's great. That's up to you. But I would not look to find my orgy partners through a board game meetup, I don't think. But yeah, there are a lot of horror stories out there, unfortunately. Nerdy type hobbies in general, it's like board gaming, video gaming, things like that, do have people who aren't necessarily always the best at socializing. Socializing is an acquired skill, and some people don't have it. And so you can run into groups that are weird or have off-putting members and things like that. And so some of that, you just got to trial and error it, and don't be afraid to cut your losses. Like if you show up to a game night and you don't click with them or something about them is off-putting to you, just keep looking. Like if it's a, he says he's in a fairly populated city. So I don't know. Like here in Denver, like our group is, I think still, pre-COVID was the biggest weekly, like any kind of like regular scheduled game night meetup, but we weren't the only ones. So somebody who didn't fit in with our group might fit in better somewhere else. And in fact, I know people who came to our game nights a few times and sort of petered off, who I then, could see on like other Facebook groups of the area going regularly to their game nights. And it's like, okay, that worked better for them. Like there was a group that met at a Target a lot, in like the food court at a Target to play board games. And the person who went there a lot was somebody who didn't really feel comfortable going to bars and breweries like we did. And that, that's fine and good for them. They found a group. Just keep looking and keep trying. And all else fails, start your own. That's always an option too.
Question
What's
2.
the second question, Jeff?
Yes. I'm curious about your favorite licensed games, and that has more.
I think.
Yeah, if that has more to do with the gameplay or the fondness of the property that makes it high on your list. Most licensed games suck balls.
Most of them do. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But they've gotten better over the years, but they're still. It still seems like a good amount of them are just like, oh, people like this property. Let's just make a game and then slap this property on it, and then it'll be good.
Yeah.
Which is not true.
Star Wars has been doing pretty well under Fantasy Flight.
Mm-hmm. Legendary Encounters, Alien.
Yeah.
That one, I think the theme is a good part of it. It's got solid mechanics too, but I know there have been other legendary ones that have been similar, but I'm like the Firefly one or the Bond one or X-Files, I'm just like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But I was like, the Alien one, yeah.
I'm all in.
Yeah. So for me, I think my like hands down, like not even close winner is the Legendary Encounters Alien. Some other ones that like I know people do tend to really like, and I don't know what you mean. Like when you say licensed, I don't necessarily know. It seems like from the list you gave in the email, it seems like you were leaning towards like film-ish stuff, like Big Trouble in Little China, Marvel movies, Evil Dead, Star Wars. That's where it seemed. I don't know if that's necessarily what you meant, because there's obviously like, video games that get licensed, like the Civ games.
Civ games, like XCOM. Yeah.
But some other ones that I know that people do tend to really like fucking Battlestar Galactica is a hugely popular licensed board game if you like the type of game that it is.
And now it is very much out of print.
Yeah, it's hard to find. If you're like a Harry Potter fan, like Megan, my fiance, huge Harry Potter fan, her and I both really like Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, especially towards the end of it. I think all of us on the show liked like Star Wars Rebellion, which is a Star Wars one. Game of Thrones has an actually like good board game.
Most of the Kickstarter stuff comes out very disappointing.
Like Dark Souls, right? That didn't turn out well.
Horizon Zero Dawn, same developer, I think. Is that Steamforged for both of those?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you just have to find something that can merge the gameplay and make it feel central, like the theme feel central to that. Because, especially with some of those ones where you're going for the property, like Horizon, like it's just like, ooh, look at all these minis, and this is blah, and then you try it, and it's like, it's okay. Because it's disappointing
Spartacus
when you. Yeah, Spartacus is a
another
good one. I've heard good things about that one too.
That's getting a re-theme.
Yes.
Because it's not going to have any of the Showtime stuff in it anymore.
Right. It'll still be Spartacus, but it won't be the show Spartacus.
Yeah.
One piece of advice that I'd have, like, since you mentioned, like the Kickstarter addiction and Ameritrash / licensed game kind of combined. Somebody who went through similar phases as I went through board games. When you're evaluating a Kickstarter, especially for like a big mini heavy thematic / Ameritrash / licensed game, evaluate who it is. Like, look at who's doing the Kickstarter, look up some of their other games and what people have said about them. Like, like Zach was pointing out, like some of those like Horizon Zero Dawn and some of those that were done by Steamforged. Like, there was actually a big minis game that we thought about doing on this episode for our $100 Kickstarter game of the week or whatever, that we joke about, that was Steamforged, and ultimately we decided not to even cover it because they've consistently had issues, and we're not gonna give them extra attention until they get their shit figured out. So just look at who's running the Kickstarter. Have they ran a big Kickstarter before? Has it been successful? Did people get their game? Did people like the game they ended up getting?
Speaking like that. A good example of that would be the Frostpunk board game that like the Kickstarter that was pretty recent. Like that was done by Awaken Realms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and so they've shown that like they had, Tainted Grail being a previous game of theirs, but they've shown that even like with licensed properties like this War of Mine, that they can take it and do a good job with that it feels like a good extension of the video game more or less in a board game form. And so you can, when we saw that, we could tell that they were going to try and do it justice.
Yeah. I'd forgotten all about Frostpunk because I meant to go back and look at that before it finished.
You might be able to late pledge. Who knows?
Yeah, but you can't get the pre-washed stuff.
Yeah, well, you can. You can do a post-wash. How about that?
Yeah,
it's not very hard.
I know it's not, but I've never been able to.
Just pay Jeff like $150, and I'm sure he'll do it for you.
Oh, now, whoa, buddy,
absolutely.
Whoa,
I would have to spend $120 on materials, of course.
Yes, of course.
I tell you what, Jeff, I'll take your old PS4 off your hands if you shade my minis for me.
Who's doing who the favor?
I'm keeping you from having to carry it out to the garbage.
Yes, that's what I will do with it. I will throw it in the garbage.
Anyway,
but another downside to licensed stuff is like sometimes they'll lose that license and then it's gone forever, and then you can never find that game, even if it was awesome, because now it just doesn't exist anymore. So
yes.
Yep. So like that's what happened with StarCraft,
Forbidden Stars.
Yeah.
Firefly, I think, that's why Fireflies is, or not Firefly, the Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
Yep.
They're just like, nope, we're not going to do that license anymore. Bye.
Yeah. Oh, the second half of the question there, for me personally, it really needs to be the gameplay. Like, there's a lot of IPs that I love that I would never even consider buying a board game for because I don't think it'd be a good game. It first and foremost needs to be a good game.
Yeah, and that's what's hard with Kickstarters is you have no idea if that's going to end up being a good game. And then you're stuck with the fear of missing out. But like, what if it is a good game? Well,
yeah.
Let's say 7 out of 10 times it's not.
Yeah.
So, and then you have a lot of Zombicide.
Yeah, which I still do.
It's okay.
Maybe I'll get rid of it someday.
Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
It'll live with me forever. Anyway, the email continues.
I appreciate your feedback and looking forward to continuing listening to your podcast, which is one of my favorites. Bye, Sean.
You can tell he actually listens because he called the email listener feedback and he said, bye.
Bye.
Both of which I appreciate.
Same.
Yeah. So that wraps it up for listener feedback for this week's episode. We didn't have any other stuff. If you want to email us, you can.
Emails at milehighgameguys.bat. But. Emails at milehighgameguys.com. I was writing feedback on the paper as I was trying to say those words, and that's what came out.
Nice. You can also find us over on Twitter, where I tweet under at MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG.
I am Jeff_MHGG.
We have an Instagram account at MHGameGuys that we have not used in quite a while, unless Jeff started uploading his painted minis there.
You should.
But you should, definitely. We have our Facebook account, facebook.com/MHGameGuys. Our old-ass website, milehighgameguys.com, has not been updated in a while, but you can still find old episode notes that have in them links that are still active to things like our Slack channel, which is very active and is where we do a lot of our interacting with a bunch of our fans and where you can kind of just come casually hang out and chat with us. If you want to play Among Us with me sometime, that's where we organize those games. A lot of other, like, just generic playing, like the Root app that I talked about. Like, there's a lot of people organizing games of that over on the Slack channel. Slack channel is really great. Highly recommend you come and join it. It's free. Yeah. We also have our BGG guild number 2731. If you're over on BGG, feel free to jump over there and become a fan. There is a giant meta thread where we are building up a huge list of questions that shortly after we get back in studio at the end of this COVID shit, we're going to do a big, huge, like, Q&A celebration back in the studio. Like, I don't know, we'll figure out some other fun shit to do to celebrate actually being able to hang out again in the same room together for hours at a time. But you can ask us any questions that you have over there in that thread, and we will get to them at some point in the future. And then lastly, we have our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/MHGameGuys. We did a stream there a couple weeks back of Terraforming Mars on Tabletop Simulator that I think went really well. We had a bunch of fun with it, and we plan on doing more of those in the future. They will probably be fairly impromptu, though, kind of like that stream was. So make sure and follow/subscribe to the Twitch channel so that you get notifications when streams go live and you can check them out. Yeah, that's all the different ways to follow us, consume our content, check us out, that kind of stuff. So thanks everybody who does any and or all of those things. We appreciate it. That's pretty much everything. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Gray Fox Games, for their continued support of the show. They have in turn opted to support you, our listeners, by giving a 20% discount off of any of their non-exclusive games on their website, grayfoxgames.com. To get that discount, just go pick out whatever non-exclusive items you want, get them in the cart. When you go to check out, there's a space for a promo code. And in that space, type in NOVGAMEGUYS, 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 all one word. Throw that in that coupon code. That's going to get you 20% off of those non-exclusive items, which is most of their board games. Like basically anything that's not like their version of Kickstarter exclusive type stuff. But pretty much everything on their website should fall under that. So go do it. Go check it out. Go get yourself some games in anticipation of COVID vaccines and in-person board gaming sometime in the future.
Yay!
Additionally, you can still go check out on their Kickstarter for Campaign Trail, the Green Party expansion. There are pre-orders and things that are available over there, or should be at this point. I didn't actually verify. But they're supposed to be available. So you can jump over to their Kickstarter and back that if you are interested as a late pledge / pre-order. Zach and I both backed it. We're looking forward to it because it sounds kind of cool. So if you want to hear more about it, go back a few weeks in episodes, and we talked about it in Kickstarter and in the sponsor spot that we're doing right now. Jeff, do you have a prepared statement?
Of course. Gray Fox Games, quality games, cleverly crafted. Also, a name means nothing on the battlefield. After a week, no one has a name.
People still have names. That's crazy talk.
Not on a battlefield.
After a week.
You know, I guess I've never been on a battlefield for a week, so I can't definitively say that that's not true, but I suspect it's not true.
No, the logic is sound until you can disprove it.
Yes. Speaking of things, that HeroQuest Pulse Kickstarter, that's not a Kickstarter, ended at $3.7 million.
That's incredible.
God damn.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. I look forward to everyone being disappointed by that when it shows up.
Like, man, this is like a 20, 30-year-old game, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Boy, this sure plays like a really, really old game.
Yeah, everyone was really upfront and honest about that. I don't know what you expected. Yeah. That wraps up everything on this week's episode. Thanks for listening. As always, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm Haptic Jeff.
Bye.
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 Punchboard Media, where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.